first day, I got great records of two or three runners. Rudy Law and Julio Cruz were top 2 and 3 base runners in the American League that year. I got them stealing, and so I got great slides. So I got the films developed overnight. I got my big projector in my room. I'm watching the films, and I won't tell you what I saw yet. I said, I called Davey Nelson, first base coach. I said, Davey, can you come to my room? I want to show you these films. He comes to the film room and he looks at it. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to tell you what we saw yet."
Mm-hmm.
He says, we got to take these to Comiskey. So we go to Comiskey. We set it up in the coach's office. Coaches come in, they see it, and they're just cursing because they don't want the players to see it. Remember,
right.
That's their attitude. And Davey's pleading to them, "Please look." So they watch the films. They didn't realize that as I was starting the scan,
mm-hmm.
when the runner was leading off first,
Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your most true, authentic business voice. Heck, maybe it's just your most true, authentic voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, make billions of dollars. That's what today's guest promised he's going to have us do. Maybe not. But I will tell you this. One of the reasons I continually get charged up to do the podcast and more people get to tune in and listen in is because I get guests who walk the walk.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Today's guest, folks, is no exception. Right before we went live, I referred to Dr. Jack Groppel as a Renaissance man because when we air out this conversation a little bit, you'd be blown away by the breadth of expertise. He's not just a published author. The book, if you're watching the podcast, you see it prominently. Mountains Within, A Life of Achievement, A Quest for Meaning, and The Mountain That Changed Everything, but also happens to be an authority in sports science, human performance, a Hall of Fame coach, a scientist, an entrepreneur. And since he had a little bit of extra time on his hands, co-founded the J&J, Johnson & Johnson Human Performance Institute, where he's helped leaders and Fortune 50 companies apply the same principles used to train world-class athletes. Dr. Groppel, I can't even imagine in terms of where to begin when you have all of this information piled together. What would you say, early on, what were the things that interest you most first? And then how did it fan out?
Well, I think, as with all of us, it goes back to my childhood. And
right.
I had a curiosity. I've looked back on this, and obviously the reason I wrote the memoir and everything else,
mm-hmm.
I've always had this curiosity. And it was unfathomable why I had it. I just had it. My sister's 10 years older than I, so you could obviously argue that I was raised as an only child. We spent a lot of time on farms. Everybody in my family are farmers. I hunted. I had my own gun at 9. I mean, I was in the outdoors. I was creating and thinking and imagining, and I think that's really where everything got started, with being able to do so many different things in my adult life.
So, was it the sports? Was it the science? Was it just being a typical kid? What was it that in terms of that intrigued you first?
Well, I think I was a typical kid in many ways. In many ways I wasn't. But in many ways I was. I was a typical kid that loved to play, but I was alone a lot. And so I had to be,
mm-hmm.
I would play 9-inning baseball games in the backyard by myself with a tennis ball and throw the ball against the steps and if the ball hit the edge of the step, it could fly up in the air and be over my head, be a home run. So, literally I would play, and we grew up outside of St. Louis, so everything was about the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yep.
And I literally would play 9-inning baseball games in the backyard by myself. Now you could say, wow, this kid was alone. What a weird dude. But again, that molded me into who I became later,
Mhm.
who wasn't afraid to step into something and do it. And I think my life is the epitome of the equation luck equals preparation plus opportunity.
I hope my buddy Garth Reed is watching and listening to the show. He's a massive St. Louis Cardinals fan.
Oh, that's
So
great.
I caught that. Now, obviously, we're talking baseball Cardinals when I'm speaking right now,
Correct.
and in terms of overall. And I noticed, like in your book where you talked about it, was a big deal. And then, of course, the Cardinals moved to
Arizona.
Arizona,
Yeah.
right? And so it changed things. But that sort of loyalty is a big, big, big deal. As I would imagine when you're describing yourself with such a wide age variance as an only child, so to speak, even with a
Mhm.
10-year-old or sister.
Yeah. Well,
I'll get
it was fascinating too about the loyalty, because this again was a contributing factor, because everybody in the family except one, and I'm going to explain in a minute.
yeah.
Everybody in the family, we were St. Louis Cardinal fans,
Mhm.
baseball and football, until the Cardinals moved to Arizona. But one person in my family who was very close to me was not, and that was my grandpa on
Mm,
my dad's side. And
right.
get this, his whole rationale was, we live in Illinois. We don't live on the others, even though St. Louis is 20 miles away. We don't live in Missouri. So he was a Chicago Cubs fan. And my grandpa, for whatever reason, I can see him right now
Mhm.
on a Saturday afternoon, sitting at the kitchen table, leaning over and just listening to the Chicago Cubs radio.
Mm,
And here the rest of us are watching the Cardinals on
yep,
television, and
yep.
Grandpa wouldn't do it. He says, "No, I'm an Illinois person. I root for Chicago."
So I think of your grandfather, and obviously, like I said, it's not exactly current news. But as I read now that the Chicago Bears are highly likely to be playing in Indiana in the next couple of years, it's just going to be a very. It's I get the geographical loyalty. I
Yeah,
really
Grandpa
do.
would struggle with the Bears moving to Indiana.
I'll bet for an obvious reason.
Yeah,
Now, I said right away, I wanted to get to early on with this. Um, Talk to me about your dad in
yeah.
terms of
Dad,
such a critical figure. Obviously, he's your dad,
right.
but in terms of how things went with him growing up.
Yeah, Dad was both the hero and the villain of my story.
Hmm.
He was the hero in that he always encouraged me to hunt, to fish.
Hmm.
He encouraged me about the outdoors. He My dad had 21 beagles, John, 21 dogs,
Wow.
and we lived in a small town. Um, and Dad was a pretty tough owner of pets. He wasn't a typical. It was more of a kennel, and but he trained the dogs in
Hmm.
what was called field trials. And what a field trial is, for your listeners and viewers that don't
Right.
know, a field trial is it's not hunting. You don't shoot the rabbit, but you let a rabbit go, and the beagle is released just seconds afterwards. And the beagle, it's time trials on how fast the beagle can herd the rabbit back to the hunter. Now
Hmm.
again, there's no killing in this, there's no shooting, but
Hmm.
it's a time trial of the beagle being able to herd the rabbit back. It's called field trials.
Wow.
And Dad had one dog.
Hmm.
The name of Dad's kennel was Shady Dale Kennel,
Hmm.
and the dog he named after President Eisenhower. So the dog's name was Shady Dale Ike.
Hmm.
And your listeners can look this up. Ike was a national champion, and in 19 in the late 50s, we moved from Jerseyville, Illinois to Alton, Illinois, a little
Okay.
larger city.
Right.
Dad couldn't keep the dogs, and we drove to Niagara Falls, and I watched Dad sell Ike, which was really confusing for a young boy,
Uh,
because he just was enamored by Ike. Dad, I mean, I've got a picture of in the book. I've got a picture of my sister and I holding Ike's with all the trophies,
hmm.
and he sold Ike for $900, John, in the 50s.
Yeah.
That's
My
like
God.
$20,000 to $30,000
Right.
money.
Right.
And so suddenly I'm going, whoa.
Mm.
So here I'm watching my dad as a trainer of elite dogs, high performing animals, and him receiving trophies and loving it, and then making a lot of money in the process. And he was a school teacher. He did it on the side.
Mm.
So from that role, he was really a model for me. But my dad ruled the roost by fear.
Yeah.
Was My dad definitely believed spare the rod, spoil the child. And it was after one particular beating when I was 6 years old, and it was a beating because I was black and blue and everything else. But instead of cowering, and I don't know why, John, but instead of cowering, I said, I'll show you. I'm going to show you that I'm good. And for whatever reason, from that day forward, it became all about trying to earn my dad's love. So I was an Eagle Scout at 13. I would never counsel a young person to go through scouting that fast.
No.
And I did it. I got my Eagle intentionally the week before I turned 14, just to prove it to Dad that it could be done. So that's a young, pubescent child, and then I taught myself to play tennis. So now, and my sister had gone to the University of Illinois. And why did she go to the University of Illinois? Because people didn't think she could make it. Well, that's Groppel kid code for that means you're not good enough.
Yes, see, you talk about in the book, and this is where the repercussions, you described the beating that you talked about in very, very specific detail. And it wasn't just the physical signs that you talk about, the black and blue marks and what have you, but it was also, you described it as a black vapid vortex.
Oh, that's good. You remembered. Good.
Well, you tried, right? That you
did.
Carried for the next 40 years, a different relationship with your dad as a result.
Right. And it was, it was fascinating because as I look back on it now, that I taught myself to play tennis. I only had one set of lessons when I was 11 years old. And then I taught myself to play. And Ruth Ann, my sister, had gone to the University of Illinois. So I loved it there. I mean, when we'd go up to watch games and again, the accolades, the big stadium.
Sure.
And I'm going to play tennis for the University of Illinois. And I wasn't recruited. I was recruited by smaller colleges, but not Illinois, not a Big Ten school.
Right.
But here I am telling my father that I'm going to play tennis for Illinois. And he goes, no, you're not. And if I got to pay for you to go to Illinois, you got to study agriculture because that's what we do. So I did. I enrolled in the College of Agriculture. I walked on the team and I made the team. But I got my undergraduate degree in wildlife biology.
My God.
But I played tennis for Illinois. And I did it as a walk-on. I'm not sure you could do it in today's world.
Probably. You never say never, but I think it would be incredibly difficult. You talked about, also in the book, you talked about a crazy difficult injury in your junior season, in regards to tennis.
Dislocated shoulder?
Yeah, well, I saw the photo in the
7
book
times.
with the body cast.
Yeah, I had a body cast on. Because in those days, in today's world, people don't understand this. When you mend a dislocated shoulder, you just tighten the capsule and everything's fine. You're in a sling maybe for a few days and you start moving. Well, in those days, they reinserted 2 of the rotator cuff muscles to the front of my humerus, the upper arm bone, to keep it in the joint. They did nothing to the capsule. They reinserted 2 muscles, and I had a body cast around my entire body for 4 weeks. So when they took the cast off, it smelled really bad.
Yeah, right.
But I had blisters between my arm and my trunk because from heat blisters, and they had to break them, and then they watch for infection and everything else. But that was awful. And then when I got out of the cast, I remember having to go to the shower and do things like this to go up the wall for rehab to just try to raise my arm because had been totally isolated for 4 weeks in the body cast.
Yes, see. So you're in a body cast and you already are like a small family and what was it like what was it like for you, not just the process you described, the physical part, but I would say the psychological part of it as well too, because while you're accustomed to being, as you said, alone, so to speak, right? That would not be exactly at least my dumb opinion, a time when you want to be alone, when you are immobilized. So how did you, it's one thing to say you tough it out, but how did you actually do it?
Well, I think I struggled. I struggled a lot. That was the only semester I went on probation. I couldn't study. I couldn't concentrate. So yeah, that semester I went on probation, and that got Dad's attention. I'll tell you that right now. That was a wake up call that I got on probation, and he said, "Well, this better get straightened out." But you see, what my brain's thinking is, "Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to play tennis in my senior year
Yeah. Yeah.
because I mean, I was out for the junior year because of that body cast. I mean, you just can't rehab that fast.
Right.
So, but I was counting on my senior year, which turned out to be good. It was a really good year competitively, but it was tough because Dad was angry.
Mhm.
I was upset. I was alone. And yet I had to get my act together because I got to get my grades up.
Mhm. There was something you said in the book that reminded me of something from myself. So I also will bring up in a couple of different instances that going back to say the fear of your dad and that how that doesn't just end when you're not a little kid anymore. You know, it didn't for me actually. And I worked with a high performance coach for years, and the way he described it was that he put all kinds of armor on himself as a result of a beating that he got from his dad.
Hmm.
And all that sense of freedom and and I'll be anything and anyone, that you become much more guarded and cautious in your decisions. And I'm wondering how you were able to break through that.
Well, it was hard. I mean,
Yeah.
the first there were many different kinds of breakthroughs. The first, you
Mhm.
might remember on the trip to Alaska,
Yeah.
I was between my junior and senior year, and Dad called me and said we're going to drive to Alaska, and I thought he was absolutely insane.
Mhm.
Because I'm going, Dad, we'll kill each other. There's no way this is going to work because we were estranged and everything was strained, and
Right.
we're going to be in a truck with a camper on the back, a cover,
Mm.
not even a camper. We're going to
Mm.
sleep in the back of a pickup truck and drive from St. Louis to Alton, Illinois to Fairbanks, Alaska,
Mhm.
and be gone for 6 weeks together, drive over 4,000 miles. So it was on that trip that one afternoon, I was driving and he was railing on me, and we were on the edge of a mountain, side of a mountain, and I just drove right to the edge.
Ooh.
And he got scared
Mhm.
and he starts yelling at me to pull over. And I said, I'm not going to pull over until you stop yelling at me. I mean, I honestly think Dad thought I might drive us off the mountain
Wow. Wow.
because I was so fed up and I was so done
Mm.
the yelling. And that was the beginning of a years long reconciliation. We didn't reconcile for a couple of decades later, but that was the
Yeah.
beginning of at least us,
Mm.
me advocating for myself.
Mhm.
In fact, at the end of that chapter, I don't know if you remember the quote, but I just love this quote. It's got an unknown source. It says, um, "If burning bridges means that if advocating or standing up for myself means that I burn bridges,
Mhm.
I've got matches we ride at dawn."
I
And
saw
I
that
just
quote and I
love
loved it.
that quote
Right? I
because
loved it.
I stood up for myself that day, and then that allowed me to stand up when Dad was being mentally abusive to my mom. I was able to
Yeah.
stand up
Yeah.
to him
Mhm.
a couple of times, and then
Mhm.
you know when I got recommitted to my faith later on, then he
Mhm.
he did as well, and then the ice broke. The last 10 years of his life were actually okay. I mean, they weren't fantastic,
Mhm.
but I forced him to say the words "I love you," and then he would say it before I would.
See? And I love that part of it. Even the way you just said, it wasn't fantastic, but it was certainly okay.
It's okay.
Sometimes that's more than good enough, depending on like the vantage point.
Yeah, sometimes we have relationships with our parents that we're blessed that it's just okay because it
Mhm.
was so bad early on.
Mhm.
Being okay is a good thing.
Is peace, stability
Yeah,
sometimes, and that
yeah,
part's great.
yeah.
I wanna shift gears a little bit
Sure.
because I think there's a really fascinating part of where your story happens to turn in the tennis world, where you go from active player to all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but you're now meeting and filming and learning, like with Stan Smith and
Right.
Bjorn Borg and John
Yeah.
McEnroe and an era of players that I remembered really well.
Yeah.
That's where, like, that sort of breadth of knowledge, where I was starting to think Renaissance man, right? So this is where I was. Where there's a photo in the book where you're looking into some sort of a machine, some sort of a film machine,
Yeah.
which, honest to God, it's like if any of my younger listeners or viewers would die laughing just looking at the size of the machine.
Yeah,
Not you.
Yeah, it's called a Vanguard Motion Analyzer, and if you'll look at the top, there's a 400-foot reel of film being fed in. So I'm frame by frame, I'm digitizing all the film. So that means I'm getting an X and Y coordinate of the wrist, X and Y coordinate of the elbow, X and Y coordinate of the shoulder, X and Y coordinate of the hip, the knee, the ankle, and then you go to the next frame and you do the same thing. And then the next frame, and then the next frame, so that now you start literally getting a description of what is happening at the world-class level with technique.
What was it like being introduced to, I would imagine, since you're a tennis player, to like your heroes at this point? What was it like that you're coming in as a peer?
Yeah.
What did it feel like?
It's kind of funny because Stan and Margie Smith are very good friends of mine now.
Love this. And I love the first name, Stan and Margie.
So Stan, I just saw them a couple of months ago.
Okay.
And I gave them a copy of the book, and I told them up front, I said, guys, bear with me because this talks about the first day that Stan and I met, and I was pretty traumatized that day because I'd been watching, and Margie. It was so cute because Margie goes, "Oh, Jack," because we've known each other a long time now. They go, "Oh, you wouldn't have needed to be like that," and Stan goes, "Well, I kind of understand though, because I mean, it is Stan Smith. I mean,
right."
When I met him, he was still number one. He was number one doubles player in the world. He and Bob Lutz, and Stan had been obviously number one in singles. And but it was just fascinating when he had an elbow problem, and I'd been working with an orthopedic surgeon, and the medical world had gotten to know my work because I was doing peer-reviewed research, and the surgeon operated on Stan on his elbow, and the surgeon said, "Look, can you go to Hilton Head, take your camera, and shoot films of Stan and see if you can help him, because I'm concerned that it's his technique that caused this problem." So I go to Hilton Head. Dennis Vandermeer was very gracious and let us use his covered courts because it was a terrible day.
Okay.
We got great records of Stan serving, and I did make a change, and Stan was open to it, and he worked. I mean, it was great. So he was still able to play again for another couple of years as he was in the twilight of his career, which really meant a lot to me that I was able to help somebody at that level. And then it was a few years later that I was the chairman of the sports science committee for the U.S. Tennis Association. I was asked to go to Palm Springs to work with Michael Chang and to work with Michael on his movement and his fitness and nutrition. And then it was before that though. So the Stan Smith thing happened about the same time that I went to Madison Square Garden and got high-speed films of McEnroe, Borg, Connors, Lendl, and that whole group. I mean, and so now I've got all these high-speed records of the greatest tennis players in the world.
Wow.
And then, I mean, what's fascinating to me now and then is I'm at a medical conference and I'm showing these high-speed films, and I finish the talk, and this big, just tall gentleman reaches out to me in the aisle and he says, "Can you do this in baseball?" And I said, "What do you want to look at?" And he said, "Well, I'm really concerned." I don't know who this guy is. He says, "I'm really concerned about the head first versus the feet first slide in baseball." And I'm like, "Well, that's warranted. That sounds valid." And I said, "Who are you?" And he goes, "My name's Richard Corzot. I'm the team physician for the Chicago White Sox."
My God.
Now, at this time, I'd stopped coaching the men's team at Illinois, and now I was a professor. Now I'm going up to old Comiskey Park, and my seats are right behind third base.
Wow.
You got to understand the era. This is way before video was ever used in sport. So the managers or the coaches are all coming out. What is this? What is this? You're taking films of what? And I told him about, I was working with Dave Nelson, the first base coach who was overseeing the base running, and Dr. Corzot. And I was literally told by the managers and coaches, do not let the players see these films. They were concerned about paralysis by analysis.
Sure.
Because nobody was doing this kind of thing. Well, with that first day, I got great records of two or three runners. Rudy Law and Julio Cruz were top 2 and 3 base runners in the American League that year. I got them stealing, and so I got great slides. So I got the films developed overnight. I got my big projector in my room. I'm watching the films, and I won't tell you what I saw yet. I said, I called Davey Nelson, first base coach. I said, "Davey, can you come to my room? I want to show you these films." He comes to the film room and he looks at it. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to tell you what we saw yet." He says, we got to take these to Comiskey. So we go to Comiskey. We set it up in the coach's office. Coaches come in, they see it, and they're just cursing because they don't want the players to see it. Remember, that's their attitude. And Davey's pleading to them, "Please look." So they watched the films. They didn't realize that as I was starting the scan, when the runner was leading off first, I'm getting the pickoff move of the opposing pitcher
Oh my God.
in high-speed film.
Oh my God.
And then the coaches go, "Can you shoot films again today?"
It's
This is way
crazy.
before. This
Yep.
is way before. It was all accident.
When you think about how dominant film is in everything, let alone in professional sports,
Yeah.
that to think that this was hey, we don't want the players to see this, as opposed to studying and studying and studying in every sport. That's
Correct.
spectacular.
It,
So I'm,
it's unimaginable.
yeah, yeah. So I'm blown away by that sort. Oh, what I wanted to ask you about that was it at that point where they're realizing you've got the opposing team's pitcher's pickoff move? Is that when you were, in essence, oh, you know what? Let's just keep going? You answered it already, but I wanted to see if that was just, to me, that was a watershed moment.
It was a huge watershed moment because then everybody loves me. I mean, everybody loves what I'm doing now. I mean, because now everybody gets benefit, not just the base runners and the first base coach. Everybody sees benefit. And I mean, and by the way, if your listeners or viewers want to look, all you have to do is do a search on my last name, Groppel, and Dr. Corzat's last name, Corzatt, and base running. And we published this in a peer-reviewed journal article on the head first versus the feet first slides with the White Sox. So that became a published professional peer-reviewed journal article.
So with all of this going on, I'm going in a complete different direction because I found this incredibly fascinating.
Good.
So, by the way, I wanted, just because you climbing up Kilimanjaro, why did that matter? Nah, before then, heck, I'd rather start with Shen. Okay. And to me, why you felt like in the midst of other things, apparently there's a stretch where other stuff is unraveling, relationships and marriages and what have you. In the midst of this kind of turbulence, why did you feel compelled to adopt a kid?
Well, his mom and I had prayed about it, and we were at a relative's funeral, and her first cousin showed up with their little daughter from China, their infant daughter from China.
Okay.
And we hadn't really thought about it, but we didn't. It wasn't a knee-jerk response. We waited a year, year and a half, and then we applied and we got our login date about a year and a third later. And then we had to wait. There were delays. I was too old at one point, and then it was okay, and then we were going to get a girl. We had the room pink, and then we decided to go with the waiting child list, and then we got the son. We got Shen.
Wow. So obviously everything changes for you, but I'll ask you, in the midst of having a hero-villain relationship with your dad, what in your mind were the things that you wanted to do that would be different than the way that you were raised?
Well, that was one thing. When we were in China, before we even got back, I said to myself, God loves him. God loves both of us. And I will not raise him the way I was raised.
Okay.
So I never hit him. I never spanked him ever. We had tough times. In fact, I mean, your listeners might laugh at me and you might think I'm wrong at this, but when things got really tense between Shen and I, ever in his childhood growing up, he knew about my dad, and my dad's name was Howard. So his name was Howard Groppel.
Yep.
When Shen, there were like 3 times that I can remember this. And Shen would, if he were here right now with us, right by my side, he would go, "Oh yeah, I remember when you did that." I would say, "If you do this one more time, I am going to go all Howard Groppel on you."
First and last name.
And he stopped.
Wow.
Whatever it was he was doing, it stopped immediately because he knew I was done. I was done. And if you push me, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
But I never ever struck him.
Wow. I'm always glad to hear that. Like I said, it's to me that very often you'll hear parents say, I would never, I would, and then until they do. And so the fact
That's right.
is, you held true
I
to
did.
that commitment.
Absolutely did.
What was it? So when you talked about for so long your dad never saying he loved you,
Mhm.
what was it like in terms of your degree of affection towards Shen?
Well, that was the other thing. I wanted him to know that I loved him. So we say "I love you" every time we see each other. I mean,
Okay.
now he's a senior in college, but
Yeah,
when he
well,
was in
that's different,
school,
right?
I mean, we had a little phrase when he'd leave. I said, "God made this day for you," and he goes, "And for you." I mean, we said it every morning together
Mm,
before he left for school,
yeah.
and you know, he knew that I wasn't afraid to say the words "I love you," and he
Mhm.
felt he wanted to say them back to me. And his mom and I were just very loving to him.
Oh, I love the fact again that they sometimes talk about history repeating itself, where in this case that just doesn't seem to be the case.
You can stop it, and now there were other parts though that were not good. I mean,
Mhm.
you mentioned the marriages. I probably shouldn't have gotten married, even though I was in love. I
Why?
was very much in love because I just didn't know how to give energy to another human being.
Mm,
I think in done. I mean, I was a great teacher.
mhm,
I could communicate. I loved doing research. I loved training coaches.
mhm,
I loved people. But as far as being intimate and really giving energy to one human being,
mhm.
that was I was never role modeled that ever. So I've had to really learn a lot about that as I've grown up, as I've matured and later in life.
Who taught you? Or did you like, I mean, because you're a book guy, obviously,
About
and
empathy.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
when I recommitted to my faith and the pastor,
Mhm.
David Lovelace, he's mentioned in the book.
Sure.
David was a mentor to me that really taught me what loving another human meant. And I was still a slow learner, but I think he was the one that really taught me that.
Why walk me through, or I'm sorry, walk us through,
Yeah.
uh, your reasoning behind even feeling a need to recommit to faith.
Well, at some point you get divorced and you got to start saying, what is my role in this? I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's too easy I mean, that's what happened after my first marriage. I just
Mhm.
ran into the arms of my college sweetheart. I loved her, but I
Mhm.
probably didn't have the skills to love yet.
Okay.
I, but I did. I ran away. I mean, and I just didn't have the skills. And I think a lot of counsel. I jokingly say that I've funded the college educations of numerous psychologists' children over the years because I mean, you need therapy. I'm a big believer in therapy and
Mhm.
counseling.
Mhm.
We're not intended to do life alone. And if you've struggled with role models in your life, if you had poor ones, you really got a lot to process. There's a lot to process in this life we live. And a third party who's trained in helping you process is really important. And I needed that. And I didn't understand it earlier. So I did understand it a lot later, and it's helped me a lot. And then with David Lovelace, and then getting baptized, and
Mhm.
just really getting into the Bible. I mean, it just helped me a lot with understanding the word love.
Jack, so often, and I'm not speaking for all men or even some men, but you see more and more that men's mental health has become a much more prominent and
Hmm.
acceptable form of conversation.
Hmm.
When, in terms of timeline, you're telling me of the circumstances, how
Hmm.
about, like, when about was it 10 years ago, 50, like when you felt comfortable talking about your own mental health and the faith and all that stuff? When did you feel comfortable sharing it?
Well, I started being comfortable sharing it when I recommitted to my faith in
Okay.
1999. That's when I started, but I really didn't get really good at it until I adopted Shen.
Yeah.
Going to
Okay.
China by myself, his mom couldn't go. She had an ankle injury and had to have surgery, so she couldn't go.
Mhm.
So I went to China by myself, and this is where I love to say that God has a sense of humor because he's going to send this man in his 50s who struggled with the word love his entire life, and they're going to put a screaming 4-year-old in his arms that is terrified, who's screaming that he's being kidnapped in Mandarin, and the child doesn't know English and the man doesn't know Mandarin.
Okay. So
But
what did you
we're going to
do
teach
literally?
these 2 how to love each other
I never say this word properly. Logistically,
logistically.
um, thank you. How did you navigate the language barrier?
You don't. There, but by the grace of God go I.
Oh,
I
there
mean,
you go. Okay.
all we had was tone of voice, touch, and facial expression. That's all
Okay.
we had.
Mhm.
Now, I did learn some phrases, and there's a really funny story. It's in the book also in my memoir, Mountains Within. There is a very funny story because you do learn some phrases like "she," thank you,
Mhm.
and "meow meow," go to the bathroom and things.
Mhm.
Well, there's one phrase that they said you have to learn because you have a toddler. And the phrase, I'll just say it quickly and I'll explain. It's "bo yachts are young," which means stop doing what you're doing. Because if you're getting a toddler,
Mhm.
they're going to be rambunctious, and you're probably going to have to say "bo yachts are young" to tell the child to stop doing what he's doing.
Mhm.
So apparently, though, John, I was saying it way too much. So we're in the second week, and Shen's jumping up and down on the bed, and I go, "Shen, boyats are young." He jumps off the bed. Now this is a 4-year-old. He
Wow.
starts swaggering toward me, going, "Boyats are young." He starts mimicking the old white man and starts making fun of the old white man, the little Chinese boy. And I started dying laughing. I just died laughing.
I love it.
Well done, buddy. I mean, I deserve that because that's all I've probably been doing because I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. So I was, "Boyats are young, boyats are young, boyats are young. Stop doing what you're doing." And he started mimicking me.
So I'm guessing this is not when you introduced you were going to go all Howard Groppel on him.
Oh, no,
Uh,
no, he didn't
okay.
understand who Howard
No,
Groppel
right.
was
I
at that
guess a little
point.
too soon, right?
Yeah,
You have a quote in the book which I love, and then I want you to take a walk up the mountain for us.
sure.
Which is there's a quote that I love that you talk about, which is credited Jack Groppel. Keep steadily growing in your life. As soon as you say that you're the best, you no longer are. There's
Mhm.
always room for improvement. What got you to climb Kilimanjaro?
Well, again, it goes back to Dad and that trip to Alaska I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Remember, he called me in my spring of my junior year. I was rehabbing from the shoulder surgery from being in that body cast. He
Mhm.
says, tell your tennis coach at Illinois that you're not going to play many tournaments this summer. We're going to drive to Alaska." And that's when I said, "You're nuts. We're not. We'll kill each other,"
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera. Well, but that trip, when Dad passed away, the pastor who gave the eulogy at Dad's funeral said that Dad always talked about the trip to Alaska.
Ah.
And then when I got Shen, and obviously I'm an older father, I just said, "I want to do something with Shen that will be like Dad and I going to Alaska."
Yeah,
And I'm sort of a go big or go home kind of a guy,
I
John.
got it, right?
And I read and understood that Kilimanjaro was the highest mountain in the world that you can actually just hike. There's
Mhm.
no technical climbing.
Mhm.
Um, and I said, so I called his mom. We were not together, and I said, she was on board because especially with J&J was going to be involved in the climb.
Mhm.
So if some, like God forbid if I had a heart attack on the mountain, how do we get him back from Tanzania to her?
Right.
Everything had to be put into place, and she was comfortable that I had thought it all through. And then I took him to Rocky Mountain National Park,
Mhm.
and then because he was a cleft palate child, I didn't know how he was going to respond to altitude.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So he did great, and I said, "You want to go a mile higher?" He goes, "In the United States?" Now he's only 11 years old.
Right.
I said, "No, we're going to go to Africa." He goes, "Yeah, let's do that." So we trained for a year. I played tennis 3 or 4 days a week. He was in karate at the time, and he was in the karate dojo a lot. And then in the spring, before we climbed in the summer, in the spring we did practice hikes with backpacks and poles, and just so we could get the technique and carrying the weight. And then the beauty of the adventure was that you never knew how you were going to respond to altitude, to the extreme altitude. So you never, that was part of the adventure was you just, even though you might be fit and you might be ready, you just don't know how you're going to respond under that kind of duress.
So teach me a couple things. So I know a couple of people in my world that have climbed Kilimanjaro. I
Mhm.
am not one of them,
Okay.
and so I got nothing. And altitude would probably crush me.
That's
But I
hard.
wanted to ask you just a couple of things, which is. I heard you correctly, right? That technically you're not climbing, you're hiking.
Yeah, there's no ice tongs or no ice boots or ladders, nothing like that. It's hiking.
So you can technically I mean, obviously it's the highest and you've got altitude. But I remember like, look, I'm not comparing. I just remember I would have had no shot with what you're talking about. It was a 1 mile hike up Camelback Mountain in
Oh
Arizona.
yeah.
And I thought that was the I thought it was the hardest thing in the world. And so I hear you say that, and I'm like, well, obviously I couldn't even attempt it, but it's like just the sense that I find that really interesting. So you get there, and you're there with your son. What was the first thing that surprised you?
On the mountain.
Yeah.
Well, I think mentally, what surprised me was that we mentally had trained for the unknown, and
Mhm.
then the unknown happened. I mean,
Okay.
and it was okay. We weren't ready for this, but we're okay. And what happened was, we've got these beautiful environmental tents. I mean,
Mm.
they're incredible tents.
Mhm.
Um, and what happened? There were like 80-mile-an-hour winds on
Wow.
the third night,
Wow.
second night or the third night.
Mhm.
The silt off the mountain was blown so hard into the tent that it was forced through the zipper. So when we woke up that morning, all of our gear was covered with silt from the mountain.
Oh, wow, wow, wow.
And we didn't, and we're breathing, we're like, we got bronchitis.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't see that coming. And it was part of the preparation for the unknown. So, like, the unknown might happen. We don't know.
Mhm.
And my son, who's only 12 years old, he was 11 when we started training. He was 12 when we were on the mountain. He was the youngest on the mountain that week, and I was the oldest on the mountain that week.
Mhm.
Um, and we really adapted quite well. And I would like to say that, well, we planned to adapt, but I still think that surprised me that we were able to adapt as well as we did.
I'm blown away by that. Let me ask you, so I'm looking at the photo, which to me would bring tears to anybody's eyes, the two of you, with the big sign,
Yeah,
and, what did it feel like? Yeah, thanks for adjusting the camera, by the way. Thank you for doing that.
there
But
you go.
what did it feel like being there?
At the top,
Yeah.
well, Shen had struggled that morning to get there, and it wasn't the euphoria that you think you're going to have. It
Right.
wasn't that.
Mhm.
It was okay. It was like peace. It was at peace that
Mm.
we had done something as a father and son.
Mhm.
I cried. I mean,
Yeah.
because he really struggled when we got close to the top.
Okay.
He was about 200 yards from the summit. We were still probably a half mile from the actual summit. We
Right.
were only 200 yards from the crater rim, and he was just frozen. I mean, we'd been climbing all night long. See, you climb at night, you summit at night. You go from 13,500 feet to 19,341. So you go 4,000 vertical feet. Sorry, 15,300 to 19. So it's 4,000 vertical feet.
Mhm.
You start climbing at 10, 30, 11 at night, and you get there a little after sunrise. Um, and I'm like, you're hallucinating. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
Mhm.
But we got near the summit, the crater, and all of a sudden I hear this noise around us, and I look up, and the rangers, because it's a national park, they've got climbers that are ill. They're throwing up. They've got altitude sickness, and they're
Mhm.
trying to get them down the mountain as fast as they can. So they're skiing down the scree. Well, I got startled, and I turned around to Shen, and because we're just when you're that high, it's just like chuck your poles, take a step. Chuck your poles, take a step.
Wow.
And I turned around to Shen. I said, "Shen, are you okay?" And he
Mhm.
doesn't answer me, John. And I'm
Oh.
going, and that I said, "Buddy, you got to answer me. Are you
Mhm.
okay?" So for those that are just listening, I'll try to explain this word picture, but those that are watching, you can see me do it. His head was down the poles. I said, "Buddy, you got to answer me. Are you okay?" And what he did was just shake his head up and down. He couldn't talk to
Oh.
let me know that he was okay. And then the guide who was with us heard me get firm with him and came back, and he actually said, "Shen, do you want to go back?"
Mhm.
I'm going, "We're done." As soon as that opening came in, I'm going, "Darn it. I wish he hadn't said that." But here's my son, 12 years old.
Mm.
"Shen, do you want to go back?" And for those that are just listening,
Yeah.
he said no.
Wow.
And I walk up to him and I said, "Buddy, how can I?" And he holds his hand up and he says, "Dad, I got this."
Wow.
And he just started walking. Because what happened was when everybody see, he'd been playing cards with everybody at night,
Okay, yeah.
started cheering and screaming for my son.
Mhm.
And his nickname became the big dog because nobody could beat him playing cards. And they're going, "Let's go, Shen. Come on, Shen." They started cheering for him. And he goes, "Dad, I got this."
Mhm.
And he made it to the summit of Kilimanjaro.
Oh my god. So, I find that just spellbinding to me. Now, You were awarded the Distinguished Alumni Award.
Was
at the University of Illinois in 2025.
Yeah.
You've spoken at the UN. You've spoken to U.S. Congress, global conferences. What I want to ask you, your signature speech, I'll shake my head at me. Your signature message in 2026 and beyond. What matters to you that you think, not just your accomplishments, not just your redemption, what is it that you feel is the most compelling message that you have the capability of sharing with people right now, and why does it matter?
You can transform your life at any time.
Mm.
You can be whomever it is you think you want to become or need to become.
Mm-hmm.
It's not age specific. It's not environment. If you can change. You don't have to be stuck. A lot of people think they're stuck.
Yeah.
Now, if you're stuck in a career, look at my life. Look at my career. I'm perfect testimony, and I'm not bragging right now. But within your God-given talent, and if you train, you can become anything you want.
Mm.
I mean, nobody would have said that I would be speaking in arenas with live, following Christopher Reeve and preceding Mark.
Right.
In front of 30,000 people. Mm-hmm. Nobody would have said I never had a business class. Yet I started a business with my own money, with a colleague, with our own money, and we sell it to Johnson & Johnson, to a Fortune 50. Nobody would have said that I never had a tennis lesson. Yet I'm in 3 tennis coaches halls of fame. I'm not bragging, but what I'm saying is, if it's about your career, train, practice, rehearse. If you want to be a speaker, start speaking. You can do that. Now, if it's more around the love side, the empathy side, then maybe get a counselor, get involved with your faith, connect to what matters most. Mm-hmm. But here's the question. Ask yourself 3 or 4 times a day, what matters most right now? Calibrate your day. Calibrate the rest of your life with what matters most. That would be my message, that we can transform at any stage in our life.
Why do you have to ask yourself 3 or 4 times a day?
To just calibrate, because we just start. See, what happens in our life, John, remember when we were kids, we'd take the flattest rock we could find and we try to skip it across the water.
I remember. That's
kind of how we live our life.
Yeah, exactly, right?
We just skim across the surface of the water.
Yep.
Go.
Mm-hmm.
And when does the rock go? When it slows down, it goes deep.
Mm-hmm.
Same with us. We just skim across the surface of life and we're not able to go deep. Go deep. Stop and go deep. And then try to figure out. That's why I say that it's really important to ask yourself 3 or 4 times a day, what matters most right now? Like, you get invited to go on a business trip, but yet your child has a game.
Yeah.
What matters most right now? Is it really the business trip?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really?
Jack, I think the 3 or 4 times a day part is really powerful to me, because personally, simply because things do get in the way, that you do change your mind, or something like fear will jump out and throw a wall up. And one of the things that I wanted to, like today, at least for this first pass, ask you, which is, when you think of your dad now that he's passed, time has gone by, you've learned more, you're a dad, and all that stuff. What are your thoughts about your dad? No, here's the question. The question would be, what would you say were your dad's best traits?
What were Dad's best traits?
Mm-hmm.
His work ethic, without doubt. His work ethic, his drive to excel, and he definitely taught me that to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to say his work ethic.
I love it. And I'm guessing time has softened. It doesn't mean it negates what you've gone through, but I imagine as a dad yourself, that has your memories of your dad softened?
Oh, for sure. And in fact, I will tell you that on my retirement from Johnson & Johnson,
right,
I had a nice party and my son was there. Mm-hmm. And I was going to get all kinds of invitations, because now that I retired, I could get invited to speak more.
Yeah.
More. I made a commitment to my son. He was entering high school. And I said to Shen in front of everybody, for the next 4 years, I am not getting on an airplane for business.
Really?
And I didn't.
That was the key question. Okay.
For 4 years.
Wow. I love the fact that you are a really it's not just you're committed, but you stick to your commitments. I think that part's really powerful.
Thank you.
Listen, I acknowledge you because I think this is a really powerful lesson. You can adjust, change anything you could be. I find that it's a great reminder for me and to our audience. Folks, you will see these links in the bio. You don't have to worry about writing them down. When you go to jackgroppel.net, you will see the link for the book on Amazon. Again, Mountains Within, A Life of Achievement, A Quest for Meaning, and The Mountain That Changed Everything. You will find Jack on LinkedIn, amongst other places. And so I'm lucky because I get to find Jack Groppel through Podmatch. And so now I'm feeling like all kinds of smarter. But Jack, thank you so much for showing up for me and for our audience today. It was absolutely great.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure to be with you, John. Thank you for inviting me.
My absolute pleasure indeed. Folks, you've just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep watching, liking, sharing. Tell it all your family and friends, and we will keep driving more content through your front door. John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Have a great rest of the day, folks. Be well, and we will talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.